Mr. President, up here! I voted for you! Wait a minute. That guy on the grassy knoll's got a gun. He's gonna shoot the president. Holy smokes, I've got to do something. All right, Lee. Time to become an American hero.
Darkmyths.org and Neapolis Media Group proudly present to you the Lone Gunman Podcast, featuring your host, Rob Clark, where research comes to shine and myths come to die. Stay tuned. Be right there.
Someone came up and knocked on the door of the bus, although this is no bus stop here. Knocked on the door of the bus, and I opened the door, and a man got on the bus and paid his fare. And I wouldn't be positive, but I believe that he sat down on the second seat on the right-hand side of the bus there. Eddie, we reached this point here, traffic had come to a standstill. In other words, we were sitting here, and traffic was stopped, and there was a lady that was sitting behind me here, which was going to Union Station to catch a train, a 1 o'clock train, and she asked me if I would give her a transfer, and she decided she'd just walk on down to the station, which is 7 or 8 blocks from here. And I gave her a transfer, and she got off, and at the same time, the gentleman that I picked up back up at Murphy Street back here, in other words, he got up and came up and got him a transfer and got off at the same time, in which that was the only 2 transfers that I put out coming through town, and which later they identified, the police identified the transfer as the ones that they got on Oswald when he was arrested.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is episode number 137 of the Lone Gunman Podcast. And I am not your host this week, Rob Clark. That's right. I got a special treat for everybody. I got a special guest host this week. A lot of people who listen to this show might be familiar with the man. Britain's most lovable JFK researcher, Mr. Bart Camp, will be conducting this week's interview for the Lone Gunman Podcast. And he's going to be talking to a gentleman named Ed LeDoux. Now, they're both members of the ROKC Forum, and part of the mantra of this show is where research comes to shine, and that's what's going to be happening this week, because Ed has done some fantastic research into the bus trip and the cab ride that Oswald supposedly took after murdering President Kennedy and fleeing the Texas School Book Depository. But as we're going to learn today, there's much, much more to the story that you might want to take into consideration, when you're trying to fit this narrative into what happened that day on November 22nd, 1963, and see what makes sense to you. So, look, without further ado, and I want to thank Bart for doing this interview. Hopefully, some more of this will be coming. Dealey Plaza UK has an event coming up in April, and I'm trying to think of the venue. The name is escaping me right now, and I'm a horrible Canterbury. That's it, Canterbury. But for more information, visit the Dealey Plaza UK website. If you're over there in England or in Europe at all, and you'd like to go and be a part of this special thing they got going on over there, they're going to have Larry Hancock in there. They're going to have this presentation via PowerPoint and Ed on the phone. Bart's going to be talking a lot about the second floor lunch encounter, and many, many more people are going to be over there. And they're going to be showing Randy Benson's film, The Searchers. And Randy's got some exciting things coming up. He's going to have his film in a couple film festivals. I know the Tiburon Film Festival is one of them. But for more information on that, head to Randy's website, The Searchers, and stay abreast. I'd encourage everybody to go back and listen to that episode, and just really support what Randy is doing. Excuse me, and what the guys over at the ROKC Forum are doing. We can sit here and argue about the ballistics. We can argue about where it was a shooter. The grassy knoll. We can argue about this. We can argue about that, and never really get anywhere. If you want to follow, and I'm dead serious about this, people, and I'm not talking about jumping in a forum and just discussing willy-nilly whatever. In my opinion, and this is purely my opinion, some of the best research in the JFK case is happening at the Reopen Kennedy Case Forum. Okay? And, I mean, they got guys like Greg Parker, Bart Camp, Ed LeDoux, Hassan Youssef. And these guys are doing phenomenal work over there, and many, many more. Colin Crow, the whole 9 yards. So I invite everybody to please check out the ROKC Forum, check out the Dealey Plaza UK events coming up in Canterbury, and there's going to be a conference about the security state. Thank you, Michael Swanson, for pointing it out. And it's going to be held in Dulles, Virginia, appropriate place, sometime in June. And it's going to be put on by the Future Freedom Foundation, or whatever it is, the Triple F Foundation. They're going to have speakers like Doug Horn there, David Talbot. I should have this list in front of me. But anyway, it's coming up at the Dulles, right around the Dulles Airport, in one of the hotels there. And it's just a one-day thing. It's $59. So if you live close to the D.C. area, or you've got the means to hop on an airplane and fly to Dulles for a day and enjoy the D.C. area, I would highly encourage everyone to go and check it out. They're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff relating to intelligence and military intelligence and the security state and how it affected the JFK assassination. So very interesting stuff. Hopefully I'll be able to put links to all this stuff up somewhere. My website, as you may have noticed, or if you care, is now defunct because I didn't renew it. So there's that. But hopefully I might try to get this up on the 22 November Network site and over at Neapolis Media Group, and get these links out to you to make it easy for you to find this stuff. But just keep it in mind. And so without further ado, let's get into Bart Camp. And let me just say this real quick. This episode, Bart got a little taste of what it's like to be a podcast host, and having some difficulties trying to record some things. I did the heavy lifting with the editing, and so if there's any editing issues in here, this is purely my fault. If I missed any colorful British curse words, that's totally my fault. I had the best time in the world editing this audio. I love Bart, man. He cracks me up. So this audio is broken up into 7 pieces. I'm going to try to make it sound as seamless as possible. But anyway, the show itself sounds great. Bart and Ed sound really good. They're clear. You can definitely hear what's going on. So without further ado, let's jump right into this bus ride and the cab ride and see exactly if we can figure out what the hell was going on that day. All right, guys, take it away.
Hello, my name is Bart Camp. I'm here with Ed LeDoux. We're both members of the ROKC Forum, which stands for Reopen Kennedy Case. Some of you may be familiar with some of my work on Prayer Man and on the second floor lunchroom encounter, Fugazi. And I thought it would be interesting to talk with Ed LeDoux about the bus transfer, better yet, the Dallas City transfer, about the alleged transfer of Lee Oswald going from the Texas School Book Depository on a bus and later on onto a cab to murder Tippett shortly after. Now, before I start with that, and we get Ed involved, there are some discrepancies with Oswald leaving the Texas School Book Depository. The official story is that after the second floor lunchroom encounter, Oswald makes his way from the second floor stairs at the front of the building, down those stairs, and pretty much leaves immediately. They are talking about a 3-minute window since shooting Kennedy and Oswald's departure from the Texas School Book Depository. With this bit, there is already a problem because there have been newspaper reports where Oswald supposedly at 12:45, when he was supposedly running into his rooming house and was met by Arlene Roberts, and then brushed out by having a change of clothes and picking up his gun, and that's supposed to happen at 12:45. Yet there have been reports that Oswald was sighted at 12:45 at the Texas School Book Depository. What's very important, where those reports are coming from, excuse me, where those reports are coming from isn't really clear. One of them could be Roger Craig, who saw a person looking like Oswald coming down the grassy knoll and being picked up in the car in a Nash Rambler. That itself is a story with a huge tail. And I'm not going to go into that because I'm basically going to pass it on to Ed, who is basically going to start this talk with the bus transfer. Take it away, Ed.
Great, thanks, Bart. I think I should start basically by let's go over what the Warren Commission, found most credible. They found most credible that Lee Harvey Oswald left the building approximately 3 minutes after the assassination. That'd be at 12:33. He probably, they say, walked east on Elm for 7 blocks to the corner of Elm and Murphy, where he boarded a bus, which was heading back in the direction of the depository building, on its way to Oak Cliff section of Dallas. When Oswald was apprehended, supposedly a bus transfer marked for the Lakewood Marsalis route was found in his shirt pocket. That according to the commission. The transfer was dated Friday, November 22nd, 1963, and was punched in 2 places by the bus driver. On the basis of this punch mark, which was distinctive to each bus driver, the transfer was conclusively identified as having been issued by Cecil J. McWatters, a bus driver for the Dallas Transit Company. On the basis of the date and time of the transfer, McWatters was able to testify that the transfer had been issued by him on a trip which passed a checkpoint at St. Paul and Elm at 12:36 p.m. November 22nd, 1963, of course. McWatters was sure that he left the checkpoint on time. He estimated that it took him 3 to 4 minutes to drive 3 blocks west from the checkpoint to Field Street, which he reached about 12:40 p.m. McWatters' recollection is that he issued this transfer to a man who entered his bus just beyond Field Street, where a man beat on the front door of the bus, boarded it, and paid his fare. About 2 blocks later, a woman asked to get off to make a 1 o'clock train at Union Station and requested a transfer which she might use if she got through the traffic. Cecil says, "So I gave her a transfer and opened the door, and she was going out. The gentleman I had picked up 2 blocks back asked for a transfer and got off at the same place, in the middle of the block where the lady did. It was the intersection near Lamar Street. It was near Poydras and Lamar Street. The man was on the bus approximately 4 minutes. At about 6 p.m. on the day of the assassination, McWatters viewed 4 men in a police lineup. He picked Oswald from the lineup as the man who had boarded the bus at the lower end of town around Elm and Houston, and who, during the ride south on Marsalis, had an argument with a woman passenger In his commission testimony, McWaters said he had been in error and that the teenager named Milton Jones was the passenger he had in mind. In a later interview, Jones confirmed that he had exchanged words with a woman, a passenger on the bus during the ride south on Marsalis. McWaters also remembered that a man received a transfer at Lamar and Elm Streets, and that a man in the lineup was about the size of this man. However, McWaters' recollection alone was too vague to be a basis for placing Oswald on the bus. Enter Mrs. Bledsoe, 7 p.m. Saturday, to give a very short affidavit. Mr. Ball, how far was he on the bus till he got off? Mrs. Bledsoe responds, about 3 or 4 blocks. Did he say anything to the motorman when he got off? They say he did, but I don't remember him saying anything. Did you ever see the motorman give him a transfer? No, I didn't pay attention, but I believe he did. Well, what do you mean? You believe he did? Did you remember seeing him get on? Or are you telling me something you read in the newspapers? No, I don't remember. I don't remember. Did you pay any attention at the time as to whether he did or did not get a transfer? I didn't pay any attention to him. Well, did you look at him as he got off the bus? No, I sure didn't. I didn't want to know him. Well, you think you got enough of a glimpse of him to be able to recognize him? Oh, yes. You think you might have been mistaken? Oh, no. You didn't look very carefully, did you? No. I just glanced at him and then looked the other way. And hope he didn't see me. Now, are there 2 exits from the bus? Uh-huh. The middle of the bus and the front of the bus. Uh-huh. Which exit did he leave? Front. By the motorman. Uh-huh, by the motorman. Did anybody else get off that time when he got off? No, not then. But there was a lady sitting right across. She wanted to go to the train station. To the train station? Train station. And she was worried about trying to get off and, trying to get there. And we were hearing her, and I said, well, why don't you walk over there? It's just a little ways, because the crowd was so bad. We still didn't know the president had been killed. And finally she got off, and I think it was after Oswald did. Did she ask for a transfer? Yes, she had the man give her one, because she caught the bus before she got to the train station. How do you know that? Well, I saw her. You saw her catch another bus? She got on when we did. She rode a block. Did anybody get off when the lady got off? Anybody that was going to the train station? No. There's nothing in Bledsoe's interviews, affidavits, or statements about a transfer. Only in her Warren Commission testimony. One note is that Porter Bledsoe, Mary's son, sold the calendar page from the calendar that had a notation October 7th from Oswald and October 14th to Oswald. Porter sold it on November 26th for $4, saying it was Oswald's writing. Needless to say, when the person whom bought it took it to the FBI only took a photograph of it and gave it back to the man, Mike Neibauer, the unemployed man. And so this is about the Dallas Transit Company. So here is a book, just like Cecil's book of transfers. And
did you buy this on the eBay?
Yes, I did. I actually found these on eBay. I think there's still a few available of these booklets, and they are, as you can see, they're from 1959, which is good because they're not after the fact.
Right.
These are before the fact.
Yes.
Right. So these are more important than some that would be after the fact. And I think it would be incredibly valuable if anyone could find a used transfer like Oswald's. That would be amazing. And I'll get into that why it would be amazing to have a used transfer. But so in my PowerPoint, you can see that there were some photographs by Stuart Leslie Reed.
Yes.
And Reed took a photo of the Texas School Book Depository, and then these two pictures of a couple buses on Elm Street stuck in traffic. Whether they were the focus of his attention or not, that's up to debate. And these were shortly after the assassination. And if you follow, we got the pictures and we went through them. You can kind of follow the sequence of him taking the pictures of the motorcade going by, and then him walking a block up to take these two photographs of these buses.
Yes.
And so, and McWaters testified that.
Sorry, just to interrupt for the listeners. Stuart Reed is important because he just didn't take pictures of the Texas School Book Depository and the procession, but also he's the one that was made the Texas Theater exit of Lee Harvey Oswald famous. He took the pictures of while Oswald was being dragged out of the Texas Theater and basically being shoved in a car as such. Right. Sorry.
Right. So McWaters testified that the Beckley bus, which is seen in those photos, most likely, was usually directly behind him as they came to the same intersection and passed St. Paul at the same time on Elm at 12:36. That's the checkpoint. What was Reed doing capturing the buses on Elm? Of note is the arrest of Lee Harvey Oswald, captured by Reed at the Texas Theater. Reed said he had just happened to be going to Oak Cliff and followed cop sirens to the Texas Theater. And that was his out on that, I guess. Reed never stuck around to see what his film held, supposedly, left for Panama Canal Zone, where he worked for the U.S. Army civilian sector. So Reed was basically lucky 3 times. Got the buses, he got the building, he got the arrest, actually 4 times he got the motorcade. I mean, that's a lucky guy to have all those things captured on film.
Yes.
And he was also working for military intelligence that day on assignment for military intelligence. So, and that's been admitted to, especially by his boss. Then, in the Texas Theater, cops arrest and frisk the suspect, the cop killer, right? They frisk him. They shake him down, supposedly, so that, quote, not even a razor blade could hide on him. Yet, hours later, at 4:05 p.m., before the first lineup, Lee supposedly has 5 live bullets in his pocket, and a bus pass still on him. I don't have pockets on the shirt, but which doesn't matter because the officers couldn't tell you which pocket they got it out of anyway. So it was just kind of funny. So the transfer was from a booklet of 50 transfers, just like this, and was number 004459, which is 8 deep into the book. The booklet starts its numbers at 004451, and they run through to 0044500. So the first transfer of the booklet, 004451, was supposedly taken off by Cecil, the driver, marked on its back, putting his badge or driver's number on it, and then handing it in to the company, to the supervisor, the ship supervisor or whatever, before starting his route. And he could take, as many booklets as he wanted. And just sign the first one over, hand it in, and off he goes to do his route. And so Cecil's been doing this for a while. At that time, I think it was like 13 years or something, quite a while. So he was pretty accustomed to knowing how many transfers he usually gives out, how many booklets he would need. Let's say the bus broke down, completely full. 1 booklet would usually do that for that bus. He'd be screwed anywhere else on the run, though. But usually 1 booklet will cover him no matter what happens. So basically he says he put his badge number on the back of number 1, handed in, and took off with 1 book of transfers for 1 route that he was doing, right? He was going to do the Lakewood route, and then he turns around at the end and he goes back up, and that's actually, according to the booklet, that's the Marsalis route, the way they punch him. It's actually the reverse on what the sign says on the bus and all that, and we can get into that too. But so he put his number on the back, number 195 for his testimony. And what's odd about that is that the system they had of just writing the number on the back was that each driver had a punch, right? And so they punched these with a distinctive punch for each driver. In the supervisor's office, there's a master punch list. So if any discrepancy comes up, they can come in, like say a rider, and can come in with that transfer, demand their money back or whatever, and they can see by the punch on that which driver handed that out. So it just seems kind of odd that they would know all these different punches are for this driver and not this driver, but yet anybody can write 195 on the back. It's just kind of weird. So this Dallas transit is kind of a problem. So we would know better who actually took it out if the receipt was actually punched than we do if somebody had wrote on it. Like I say, anybody can write on it. Not anybody would have their identification, their punch. Yeah. So that's just a little thing, a little aside there. So besides that, 004459 was 8 transfers into this booklet that Cecil took out, and a booklet the bus driver swore he'd only issued 2 transfers, coming through downtown. And Cecil McWaters, the driver, said he was stopped Friday night, 11:22, in front of the police station as Cecil drove another bus route that night. He had gone home after this Oswald thing. He didn't know he had Oswald on the bus, but he went home and he was watching TV and everything, absorbing everything that had happened and all the news reports. And then he goes out on this Piedmont line run. And so that's what he's driving. He's actually driving a completely different bus, completely different run, different line, different book of tickets too, because as you can see on this book of tickets, nowhere on there is the Piedmont line. So he had to go back, get a different bus from the bus garage and new tickets and everything. He didn't just, unless he took them with him, maybe at the start of the day. That would be the only thing. But these tickets don't work on the Piedmont line. So, he took 2 books of tickets, he said, that day when he checked out.
Right.
To go to Marsalis, Lakewood Road. So he had to go back. And I'll get into this too. What happens when you turn in the ticket? Let's think about that for a second while I read this. So the DPD take him in for questioning and his punch when they take him off his Piedmont line bus, which happens to pull up in front of the police station. How convenient is that?
Yes.
It's like it's almost like it's the first guy they found. What you heard somebody was on the bus? It could have been Oswald. Let me go grab him. Hang on. Go grab somebody off the bus driver. So and they probably know the guy pulls up in front of the police station too every day. The cops aren't stupid. They know the buses pull up there. They might even ride them. But some of them might have drove them in them. Some of them were cab drivers, but we'll get into that later. Who goes from cab driver to cop? Dallas Police takes those people. Yeah. So anyways, okay, so if the booklet was taken then, how do we know anything? Just, if no booklet was taken by the authorities, none's in evidence, none's ever shown to Cecil McWaters during his commission testimony, nothing like that happens. We don't know anything about what happened to this booklet of tickets. Gone, disappeared, whatever. Did he turn it in? By Ball, Berlin, or any of the commissioners? No, none of the lawyers are asking any questions about this stuff. It just forget about it. Forget about it. So, well, to put it as quickly as I can, McWaters thought the man that they wanted him to ID was the laughing boy of one Roy Milton Jones, this teenager that Cecil said, Lee Harvey Oswald was the closest looking to this kid. He didn't know who the hell Milton was. He just thought Oswald was the Milton. That's what he thought. He thought he's helping the police out probably. By IDing this guy that he thought got in an argument with some lady over the shooting and the temple shot. We'll get into that too. So this Cecil said that kid was closest to Oswald, so he picked out number 2. And so I ID'd Oswald as the pastor, whom got on his bus in the middle of an intersection while stuck in traffic. Yet Cecil's first day affidavit says a man got on near Houston Street, around Houston and Elm. That's kind of weird. And Milton, he got on before St. Paul, Milton got on at the theater. The theater is where Cecil would pull over and, kill him in it. So like I say, Cecil's first day affidavit says man got on near Houston Street, around Houston and Elm. And like I say, Milton, he got on before St. Paul, is where all the bus drivers would be at the theater there. That's where Milton got on, way before this. And if Cecil was early, that is where he would kill him in it. And so it's interesting that Cecil could be quite early that day. Cecil could be up to, who knows, maybe 5 minutes early, because on that day, everybody was basically at the motorcade to watch the motorcade. They're already into town. Cecil himself said it was a very light day, nobody at the stops. So you wouldn't pull over to stop, you would just blow right on by. So he could have got to the theater and killed several minutes. Could have been there for a while. And that's what all the bus drivers would do, is wait there at the Majestic Theater before going across this checkpoint. If you were early, you got docked. If you were late, you got docked. So you wanted to be exactly on time when you went across there. So he would wait right till 12:36, get in his bus, and head for that checkpoint. And so Milton himself even says that he was on the bus alone when he got on. Which means to me, not even the driver's on it. It was their park, door open as they do, and just left open. So you would basically hop on, throw your 23 cents into the receptacle. The bus driver would get on, see you on there, see the 23 cents in this receptacle, hit the little lever, drop it into the little coin holder down the bottom, and take off. If you got on, there wasn't 23 cents in the receptacle. You better get up and pay your fare, because he's probably going to kick your ass off the bus. So that's how that little system worked, and that's probably what happened that day. Yeah. So here we have these read photos, so that you see the Beckley bus probably behind the Marsalis bus of McWaters, and I think that's what we see in the photos, is that the bus in front. Sometimes people label the back one bus 1213. No, that's not what Cecil says. That doesn't make sense. And on that day, especially from what Cecil says, he was like one of the first bus through. They opened a lane for him on the right-hand side. When you look in the photos, it looks like his bus is actually getting ready to take that turn onto Houston, sort of kitty corner across from the Texas School Book Depository. Right. Now, the Beckley bus directly behind him, which you can see in those photos, if those are correctly the two buses, would tend to imply, and even from what Cecil said, the Beckley bus is directly behind him, even if those aren't the buses that we're talking about, that Beckley bus that's behind him would pull over on the right-hand side, right there in front of the Daltex building, to pick up passengers. That is a bus stop. And then it would continue on down Elm and go into Oak Cliff that way. Cecil's bus runs down Houston and goes by the train station. And that's why this lady was supposedly on there to go, catch this train. Who supposedly got off and got a transfer. One of the two that Cecil says he gave out through downtown, and who would know best but Cecil McWaters. Yeah. But that's not what the official story wants you to believe. So they say that now they got McWaters' bus, which does not take you to the rooming house. Okay, remember the rooming house is on Beckley, not on Marsalis, unless he was still living at this lady who says, "Hey, I saw him arguing with the other torn sleeve and jacket on." Well, maybe X-ray vision and all that.
I think the story is getting bigger and bigger over the days, because I've read some of the newspaper reports, and at first she only says one or two things, and over the days, progressing, her story gets bigger and bigger, and it just gets added on and on and on, and it's just it becomes more actually unbelievable as such. And like I said in the beginning as well,
she gets questioned. She gets questioned more and more. Right, we have to wonder if all the questioning and all the shirt showing. Remember, they bring the shirt out. They do all this kind of weird stuff to Mrs. Bledsoe, and then basically she's incorporating all this. She's putting in things that she could not possibly have seen on that bus, like it being roped off, the area being roped off, and all that. That didn't happen until much later after she'd supposedly ridden by this.
Yeah, that was
so we know she incorporated. Yep, she incorporated everything that she saw, heard, in this story. So, and so basically, we have McWater's bus. Doesn't take you to the rooming house on Beckley or even close to the theater even. So, and we know Oswald was in the theater. He was pulled out of there, so we know where he was. They can't try and fool us on that. We know where he was. So the logical conclusion is that Lee was never on bus 1213, the Marsalis bus. Why would he be? So why is this story told then? And it's because of the no conspirators, basically instruction very early on from FBI, from J. Edgar Hoover. This was the deal, man. There can't be any other involvement. If you got somebody, that's your guy. That's it. That's as far as it goes. And that's what it was. They somebody set up Lee, and they went with it. They had to. So that's public transportation for you.
Yeah.
No conspirators there.
No, none whatsoever. Now the bus itself
Yeah.
is stuck in traffic.
Absolutely.
That's another story. So basically, and also Oswald basically goes in the wrong direction, then it's stuck in traffic, gets out.
It's the wrong bus. The actual bus that he would need to get on is right behind that bus, so none of it makes any sense, or it doesn't pan out anyways, because McWater says, hey, that's not even the guy. So they're stuck. Yeah. So where do they go? A cab.
Yeah. Enter Mr. Wally.
So you had the police at first looking for a Negro in a station wagon, whom drove Lee away, and then Lee using public transportation to escape, which is ridiculous on his face. So Lee likely left, maybe to go meet with Ruth and Marina, because remember the deal was the plan was to buy shoes for Marina. He gave her money that morning, all this kind of stuff. It gets expounded into gave her hundreds of dollars. Everything. No, he gave her money for shoes. That was the plan. They were going to go buy shoes. And where's he found? Loitering in front of a shoe store in Oak Cliff, supposedly. Yeah, it just sounds ridiculous on its face, even of that. But so he was off early, thanks to his name being first on this roll call list at the top, first guy. Yeah. Supposedly, even whatever Robert McNeil or sees him, asks him for the phone on his way in, and that isn't. I don't even know if that's 3 minutes, because McNeil, he had ran down, talked to the Newmans. He had to get a story, right? It wasn't like he just ran down, saw some people on the ground, and ran back, said, "Hey, people are on the ground." He listened to the story that McNeil gave, and then you got to think about how long it took him to develop this little lead to go run into the building and use him.
He was in
longer than 3 minutes.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is the problem. McNeil never actually said, like, by himself, like, oh yeah, it was Oswald that basically told me where the phone was. Basically, Secret Service told him that weeks after, 3 weeks later, basically, which is probably after early December, when all the stories started to be concocted by the Secret Service as such. And then Robert McNeil basically went like, yeah, they visited me about 3 weeks later and basically said like that I probably met Oswald on the steps. And that's the same thing with Piers Allman, the same thing as well. His story, from a timing perspective, again, that's problematic because Allman basically is shocked and is walking around dazed around the grassy knoll, talks with the Newmans and wanders about and then slowly makes his way towards the front entrance as such. And again, there is no timing. I mean, they're guessing, they're reaching, but there's no real timestamp for that as such. And that's, again, is problematic.
Right. So they have him on the top of this roll call list. Yeah. That's very weird, because for them to get to the roll call point, even if you ask Wes, I mean, that's 15, 20 minutes into the, this assassination thing. Yeah. I mean, it's a ways in before they even start, questioning, who are you? I'm getting a piece of paper and,
what I've read
a Sawyer on scene, getting it organized.
What I've read so far is that some of the employees basically said that they went around and not everybody, like when everybody says like, oh, there was a roll call, there was no roll call as such. Basically, they just wandered around and basically went to groups of people and took their names down as such. But what's significant about the roll call list is that Oswald, of course, it's a 2-pager, and Oswald is on the top of that list. So therefore indicating that probably Oswald was the first one who left the building. Secondly, other employees have also said that, yeah, we were allowed to leave, but we had to leave our name and details at the front door. And this is where it comes in that the police starts taking names down. And then the other bit that is significant is the fact that this roll call list is not just Texas School Book Depository employees. Peggy Joyce Hawkins, for instance, is on it. Peggy Joyce Hawkins picked her husband up and stood outside and saw Marion Baker standing still in front of the Texas School Book Depository entrance as such. She went back into the depository and basically couldn't get out and therefore had to give her name. Because her husband worked in there, she just happened to be in there after the shooting and basically got stuck in the building as such. So it's a glaring example of they're not just Texas School Book Depository employees. That's people that are inside the building, and when they leave, they have to leave their names and details. Of course, also another...
Carry forward.
Yeah, and what's also important is that certain names are missing and they're handwritten underneath. Now, there's a bit of a problem with the list itself because it's typed up. Of course, the actual list would have been written down, but that list, of course, nowhere to be seen. So, but other than
Nowhere
that,
to be seen.
yeah. All right.
So here we are with the DVD, and they're taking the roll call list, and everybody would have to show something. If you can give your details, but how do they know who you are? How do they know you're giving the correct details? I think you would have to show something. And most of these people drove. A few of the employees did, take buses and stuff. So, the only matching address that, or anything that had an address as far as an ID or any kind of card in Oswald's wallet was the library card, which had, 60 smudgy, 2 looks like a 5. And of course, that's what we see written down on that list is a messed up number for the 2 and the 5 is. I mean, it's a no-brainer to put that together. That's what was shown. The way the name is written, I have no idea. It could have been one guy reading it off, one guy writing it down. Happens all the time. Let me see that. What's that? What's your name? He's giving the name. Who knows what? But that number, that nails it. That's 602, 605. That nails it. Okay. So, and then, so he had, and this is a place where he hadn't lived for months too. The Elsbeth address, and so. Book depository, which is the Irving address of the Paynes or whatever, something like that, or his supposedly new rooming house address or something. No, that's the only piece of ID he had. And in Texas, it wasn't until the Mothers Against Drunk Driving that pictures were put on IDs, and that didn't happen in Texas till 1982. So that's how stupid something you would look like with, hey, I'm Abe Heidel. You got a Lee Harvey Oswald stretch band and a Heidel, with a picture on it. Horrible. They're trying to fool you completely with all this stuff. Yeah, would never happen in a million years. Somebody as ignorant as possible, never been in the country, wouldn't even try this. So this is what they're trying to pass on you. His name or his picture on this selective service card. Ridiculous. So basically. Lee took a bus to the theater, let's say, all right, he takes a bus to the theater. What possible use would a transfer be to him? So what the Warren Commission is trying to do here is trying to tie him to the tip of bird. So, and they're using it in a strange way, this transfer. So they needed to timestamp his escape via the public transportation, remember. Can't have any conspirators. So this solves all their problems, kind of in a one-stop shop. That little slip of paper, thinner than a piece of newspaper. I mean, this stuff is so flimsy thin. This winds up supposedly in his pocket at 4:05 p.m. during, after they've searched him, probably twice. and what's weird about this too is the searching of people. My sister's been a jailer, and they search people when they come back. You know why? So they don't take anything into the jail. Yeah. I don't care what the hell you're going out into the three guys are going to stand there in front of the little witness thing. They want to know that you're not bringing anything back. You're not bringing a razor blade back into the prison. They don't want that, or drugs or whatever the hell you're going to bring in. They don't want anything brought back in. That's when they're going to search you, not before they take you out and handcuff you. Who are cops?
Yeah.
That's the problem. Two cops in the jailer, they handcuff them to about 405. So this is complete garbage that they would, we need to search you. Absolutely, completely an utter lie by Boyd and Sims on this point alone. So, and it's provable. So, so basically, this is what they need to do: timestamp his escape, and get him on public transportation alone. So, McWater's bus also, interestingly, shows up at another location of interest. The bus stops at East Jefferson, right near, or actually right on the corner of the Jefferson branch of the public library. And at that scene, McWaters and passengers would witness the DPD and some other people basically descending on that library, chasing a young man who was sent racing in by them. Perhaps a diversion to allow Tippett's killer to slip away or to do whatever. Basically leaving a gun in the jacket, 5 bullets, maybe a Cox box top, an American Bakery's receipt. Who knows what was in that jacket or what was left behind. But that would be used on Oswald, basically planted in evidence by the DPD. And so basically they're complicit in railroading him by using this evidence. And we know DPD's done this before. Basically 19 innocent individuals under Henry Wade during his time as, district attorney, and with the DPD's help, would use all manners of tricks to convict the innocent, including evidence tampering, witness coercion, subjoining false testimony, bribery, hiding exculpatory evidence, manufacturing evidence, and the proverbial packing the jury, to which only DNA proved these 19 innocent. So that's DNA the DA's office kept, but never shared or told anybody they had, or, with all their tricks and stuff. So it wasn't until later it was discovered, tested, and showed that these were all wrongful convictions, at least these 19. And, at least one of them, I guess the 20th, would be, he's dead, so they killed him. So we know Wade was not truthful when it came to Oswald's guilt. Even once Ruby had sealed the deal and killed Oswald, murdered him, Wade still felt it necessary to get the facts out, right? Have this press conference. And that's where he famously gave the name of Darrell Click as the cab driver who drove Lee away. So, and what's interesting about that is, the explanation they gave, which was, I said Oak Cliff, which is okay. It does sound like Oak Cliff when you replay the tapes and everything. It does sound like, Wade is saying maybe Oak Cliff, but the Clicks do play into the matter via Marion Meharg and David Leon Miller. And so that whole story and, about them capturing a license plate and saying it was this car and all this stuff. And then all the David Miller calls to the Beckley rooming house. And, oh, my gosh. And it's just very interesting to follow that kind of stuff, too. But so the Clicks do play into it. And then so the interesting about that is, how does a man who doesn't exist, they said there was no Darrell Click, there's no Click, right? How does he have a nickname, a Bo Click? And isn't it interesting that Oak Cliff sounds exactly like Oak Cliff? Yeah. So Bo Cliff and Oak Cliff and Bo Click, very, very, very similar. And you could get those confused. You could say Oak Cliff and mean Bo Cliff. So we don't know what the hell Wade was up to there with his cab driver story. That was very interesting. And then, so basically you got the evidence. The evidence boils down to the bus transfer receipt 004451. They bring in the first one is remember signed by the driver, turned in, but that's never shown to McWaters to verify that the receipt even is the one that he placed his number on. Why not show him the receipt? It's weird because then I think Lee Farley basically went into this thing where he showed that the booklet the receipt had been taken, taken as a souvenir, and written on, and very interesting story there. But so the booklet the transfers came from was also never in evidence. Nobody knows what happened to it. They never asked any questions or collected any evidence of these transfers or a booklet like it or anything like that. They don't want you to know. So here we have DPD Detective Sims finds the supposed transfer. Doesn't recall which pocket. Can't tell you which pocket he took out of from the shirt at 4:05 p.m.
Sims doesn't recall a lot overall anyway.
Right. And recall that at 6 p.m., Waters is at the police station, pulled up out front on the Piedmont line, and he's got different transfers. But he got the same punch. So kind of makes you wonder. So Sims places the transfer in an envelope, signs it, places the time on it, 4:05 p.m., and then says they, Detective Boyd and him, placed the 5 bullets also in the same envelope. They both sign it. So here we have this thin, flimsy piece of paper floating around in an envelope with 5 shells, supposedly being tossed into an evidence drawer from the sergeant. Never shown to anybody. Boyd and Sims don't know what happened to it after that. They supposedly put it in this envelope, put it in an evidence drawer in the sergeant's desk. No further chain of custody. We don't know where it went.
Yeah, that's funny actually that you mentioned that, because everything else is being shown and paraded around, like the rifle, or when Jerry Hill gets the bullets out of the so-called revolver, which also
shows him in his hand.
Yeah, exactly. They all get paraded and shown. Yeah.
Everything's shown. So so we have these 5 bullets rolling around in an envelope. After a huge brawl with 5 date cops ripping at the shirt, tearing at it, ripping the buttons off, ripping holes in the elbows, etc. And yet this
in pristine condition.
Was indestructible.
Yeah.
And then so the DVD take these items, all these items supposedly, and they also take the bracelet, right? And they said that supposedly said boldly Lee on it, and yet here he's just carrying this ID with an AJ Heidel name on it, which is just silly and stupid, with that kind of combination there. that they would go that far, but they did. And then so basically, remember that this was a frisk in the theater where they turn your pockets inside out to make sure that nothing's left on the suspect. This is the guy who supposedly killed a cop. And the president. They don't know that, though, of course. Right. Yeah. And so yet after all this frisking and fighting and everything, there's barely, a couple folds, some creases basically on this flimsy, thinner than newspaper. I mean, these things are so thin. I mean, they're so delicate. Just to handle them, I mean, they rip and tear. And I'm very careful with this book. But so you have this indestructible transfer shows up with barely a fold or a crease on it. And they supposedly put this into Lieutenant Wells's desk or something, evidence drawer. And which it's not signed out for, supposedly later on, at 6 p.m. or whatever, supposedly somebody's showing this to McWaters. Not Boyd and Sims, though. So there's no trail of, this item, basically. It just ends right there. It's marked the envelope 405, and that's it. And then...
But this is pretty much telling. Sorry to interrupt, but this is pretty much telling with how the DPD handled evidence overall, because in most cases, the chain of custody was broken. It was broken with the bullets. It was broken with the shells. The markings on the tippet bullets, you name it. Wherever you talk about the actual evidence, the chain of evidence has been messed with one way or another. And again, as you can see, this bus ticket as well. And as you show here in this sculpture, or how thin that piece of paper is, I mean, it would at least show dents or creases of some sort. I mean, especially after a scuffle. And and the transportation. And if it goes in the same envelope with 5 bullets in it as well, that would have an effect of some sort. It would make dents in it, and yet it comes out in like it's been ironed by the DPD before it actually comes out as such.
Some really odd looking. And so basically, this remained in his pockets for over 2 hours too. While they're running him around and taking him different places and questioning him and stuff. And so there's no chain of custody for that transfer that supposedly they present to McWaters. And it's always McWaters saying, "Oh, well, they showed me a transfer. It must be mine." Basically, I think it's this is basically a manufactured piece of evidence to support the no conspirators order, basically, that they got. And researcher Lee Farley basically noted that the receipt at 00451 was stolen by the Dallas Transit Station supervisor James P. Rout as a souvenir, right? And the foreman there, Rout, was never interviewed about taking the transfer booklet receipt. His supervisor at the station basically relayed Rout's story of taking a souvenir and stuff. And that was F.F. Yates. So that's the only person that they basically interviewed about it was Yates. Does not say as a supervisor how he acquired it back or, what caused Rout to give it back to him.
Right.
And you got to imagine, if Cecil did turn in a book of receipts from the killer's bus, who knows where they all are.
Yeah.
Who knows where that booklet. And that might be the whole story right there that, hey, let's put a number on it, and maybe we could sell these for $1 million. So it really kills their story. They don't want that brought up. They don't bring that receipt page. They don't bring any of those photocopies of hey, I took, and it's actually signed. Hey, I took this as a souvenir. And Lee Harvey Oswald and it was Cecil's bus, all that kind of stuff written right on it. It's really crazy. You can see it on the PowerPoint page there. But and as Terry Martin says, Oswald pockets basically held the same cornucopia status as the Payne's garage and those sea bags.
Yeah.
Just, what do you need? Gee, you've got it here. Come over tomorrow.
It's amazing what has grown in that period after the assassination inside Ruth Payne's garage. It's amazing.
So yeah, so basically the cab and the bus story basically owes itself to Hugh Ainsworth, he's a reporter, Dallas Morning News. Basically, Hugh reported the elderly woman whom had an altercation with Oswald on the bus was acquainted with Oswald. So therefore, if the altercation was on Marsalis, it was not with Oswald. As they said, Oswald had already departed the bus downtown with a transfer in hand. Can't be the same guy. So their story doesn't hold up. Of course, Hugh, we'll get into maybe a little bit about how Hugh got his cab story. And that's a winner there. Yet we know, thanks to Cecil, the altercation was between a woman and Milton Jones, the laughing boy, a teenager, on the Marsalis bus. The laughing boy, Milton Jones, whom stayed on the bus and rode all the way to his stop in Oak Cliff, near his home on Brownlee. The transfer is never processed. It's sent to the FBI lab, and the only thing they do with it is take pictures. No fingerprints are lifted, no residues collected, nada. Interesting. While items supposedly in Lee's wallet are stained from chemical fingerprinting. Okay. So there could be prints from McWaters, Oswald, Sims, and possibly the detective whom showed it to McWaters, the bus driver, which is not Boyd or Sims. We know that. Some other detective who they name later. These prints should be on the transfer, but they did not process this piece of paper. So basically, it's pristine too in that respect. There's no chemical fingerprint staining or anything to substantiate that this was actually Oswald's transfer. Just a flimsy story from McWaters, who tells you that it wasn't the guy. Really shoddy police work. So, of note, there's a sheet of notebook paper which is entered into evidence where several punch marks are said to be punched by McWaters. So it's a piece of notebook paper, has like 5 or 6 punch marks on it. You see it on the PowerPoint presentation. Yeah. This is basically to show McWaters' punch mark in comparison with the transfer. Silly and pointless exercise. Now, to find McWaters through a transfer that they find supposedly on Oswald, they would need, and to drag McWaters off his bus as it pulled up in front of the police headquarters. The DPD would have had to have gone to Dallas Transit, seen the supervisor, shown him the punch mark on the transfer, matched that to the master list with all the driver's punch marks on it, which they never take a picture of, never enter evidence, never showed to us or to McWaters. So the booklet and basically everything, it's not processed. Nothing's processed. So basically you have a picture from the FBI lab. That's the only thing that they do at the processing. They take a picture of the transfer, and that's it. So on there could be prints from McWaters. And so they don't show to Cecil either. So basically nobody knows what this master punch list looks like, who actually is matched up from number 195 badge number to that punch mark. Basically we have to take Cecil's word on it, and that's all we have. Very simple for them to take a copy, photo, something of that, so we have some evidence. But instead, we have the typical DPD way. And this is the same DPD that was having Whaley, the cab driver, sign his affidavit before the lineup. So basically naming the guy and then taking him to the affidavit, down to the lineup. So that's kind of funny, and it's basically comical. So basically the whole bus and cab ride is so comical that the press asked District Attorney Henry Wade if this is the first time Dallas Transit has ever been used as a getaway car. So, Cabby Whaley is so accommodating. He's asked which jacket Lee was wearing, the light gray one or the dark blue one, to which he responds both. Utter lie, as the dark jacket was later found, at the Texas School Book Depository by a person who supposedly wasn't there that day, as at the Baylor Dental Clinic, and who happens to find both the clipboard and this blue jacket.
Frankie Kaiser.
Interesting. Absolutely. Yeah. Mr. Kaiser and his brother. Very, very interesting that Kaiser's absent that day. That's so interesting how that worked out for him. And so basically, we have Whaley's cab logbook, and they're showing us, and they're trying to fool us into thinking that basically that Whaley would put down 15-minute increments, round everything off to the 15-minute. And you can see in the PowerPoint presentation, Whaley's cab logbook is marked in 5-minute increments, not 15. That is a lie. So that basically shows that he had already taken the trip to Oak Cliff by the time Lee had left the building. If he'd left at 12:33, he's late for the cab. He can't get on the bus at 12:40, ride it for 3 blocks or 2 blocks or whatever, and get off and catch this cab. Cab's already gone before he left. It's just hilarious. I mean, you really have to put your brain into another pocket in your shirt to believe what they're trying to tell you. So basically, McWaters' testimony lacked nailing down exactly which booklets he took. On the back of every booklet is a serial number. Yeah. They're serialized, so you can tell. We don't have that. They don't want to nail that down for us either. And then where exactly in the booklet that the suspect transfer was actually from. Cecil says that he gave out 2 transfers, and you're 8 transfers into a booklet. something's wrong.
Yeah.
So how is it that I have a booklet? Anyways, I mean, that was the thing too. How is it that I have a booklet dated before 1963, 1959, of course, one full booklet starting with the same number as Oswald's supposed transfer booklet came from, the same routes, etc. It seems my booklet basically raises a lot of questions. And this is but one aspect of the so-called evidence I have examined and found to be highly suspect. And basically framed an innocent man, with this evidence. At least 19, just like 19 others. Nothing there. No smoke there. So basically the forum at ROKC it has many research threads. We basically archive them from, I think I even put up my old one on Oswald's Technicolor jacket. That's a funny one. And then there's no shots fired from the Texas School Book Depository.
Yeah.
Just rips right into them.
I find the main thing is what I find always hard to swallow is in this whole case is the common sense point of view. Is like, for instance, the angle where the shots were fired. Why didn't he shoot him before he did the turn on Elm, for instance? But also, like, if an escaping
he was too busy.
An escaping assassin takes a bus and then goes in the cab because he goes in the wrong direction. Then he gets off and he goes in the cab and he lets the lady take the cab first, and all these stories. And you just go, but this just boggles the mind. This is the guy who just shot the president and then is on his way to shoot a police officer. But the way he does it is like, no, he doesn't get into the car like Roger Craig says. No, he gets in a bus and he goes in a cab and then he goes and gets his gun. And then he walks, 9/10 of a mile in supersonic speeds practically to basically blast Tippit away. And then, calm as a cucumber, goes sits down in the Texas theater to go and watch a movie as such. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And so basically that leads me into what I believe the DPD was looking for, basically a way out. And this was it, a way to get Lee Harvey Oswald to Oak Cliff in time to be the Tippit shooter, as the JFK case was very weak, very weak. So along comes Porter Bledsoe with the phone call saying his mother was on a bus with a wild man, Oswald, of note, which, cannot logistically be transfer man. So his mother has this altercation with this boy, basically, or overhears it or whatever, in which Porter spins into it being the famous killer Oswald on the bus with his mom, and then tries to sell a page from a calendar, right? Which Porter may have faked himself or whatever, basically so he could sell it. And this page from the calendar supposedly showed that Oswald had resided at the Bledsoes. Well, like I say, the FBI tracked down that calendar page and its owner, Nybar, and they didn't confiscate it, but only copied it via photocopy or a photo, which is worthless as far as handwriting evidence. You cannot tell me from a photocopy if that's my signature, because it's all based on pressure and flow and all these kind of things. That's how you identify a signature. And if you watch anything like Pawn Stars or anything, you're not getting that from a copy. That ruins it. So that was another way out for them, for the DPD or the FBI or any of them. So basically, one would think the page that proved where Oswald was living would be very important in this case, especially when they were trying to find out where he had lived for a couple weeks when they couldn't find him. So you would think they're desperately searching to nail down where he lived and where he had stayed, that this would be a very important piece of evidence, in their arsenal to convict. Yet it's not found in the commission document exhibits. Why? So, when you read and you understand, why even this picture is not in there, a picture of the calendar page that proved that Oswald was there to and from, kind of a weird way to keep track of records. What did they give Oswald to? I mean, to and from, it seems kind of weird. So when you read and understand that Mary Bledsoe's testimony, along with her lawyer, Melody Dothit, very interesting, where Melody Dothit, the lawyer for Miss Bledsoe, is doing much of the questioning of Miss Bledsoe. So, in fact, Mary reads her answers, and that's a very interesting thing, that she had prepared questions from papers the Secret Service agent Forrest Sorrells asked her to bring in. So basically, she's got her crib notes. What the questions are, here's what I got to answer. Here's the question, here's the answer. So one should take great pause when Mary says things that, are unbelievable and that help disprove her own story. So she wants to place Lee Harvey Oswald, whom she had just watched on TV in her house previously as a renter, and on the bus she took home earlier. So basically, Mary's whole story needs a chapter, and none of it would be worth 2 nickels. So, but Cecil famously says, basically the police identified the transfer as the one they got on Oswald when he's arrested. It's a very interesting way that Oswald says this, and he says this every time, in his testimony, and then in his interview with Eddie Barker of CBS, and then CBS basically aired that special report on September 27th, 1964. That's 3 days after the Warren Commission issued its report. And shouldn't Cecil have said, I identified the transfer as the one I issued that they found on Oswald? No, he does not, basically refuses to use that language. And so he sticks to his language that the DPD ID'd that transfer as the same one the DPD had on Oswald. So that makes no sense. Now, why would the DPD need to ID a transfer? So basically, Cecil is the one is laying the blame on the DPD for the ID of that transfer, not himself. The DPD is telling Cecil that is the transfer found on Oswald. Thusly, you issued it. French mark on it, doesn't it? Stuff like that. You can imagine. You can imagine the tactics or the read techniques they would have used on Cecil McWatters to get him to go along. A little arm twisting, who knows? Whatever it took. We'll make you famous, Cecil. But he tells him it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
By his language.
Yeah.
So, and the thing. Go ahead.
I was just thinking about McWatters. McWatters got this threatening letter as well, didn't he? Like that piece of newspaper clipping. You're next, maybe. March 20th, 1964.
He was supposed to testify next, and that was, I think, what the letter from a kid or some, fan, somebody in a classroom or something, maybe a homework assignment. We used to get them as kids, pick something out of the newspaper and write to this person. And, it wasn't like he wrote to him at home. We just Dallas Transit Company is how it's addressed. Yeah. And basically with the article and, hey, you're next. And in the article, it says he's next to testify. Yay! Kind of that kind of thing. You can take it either way. You can say, oh, that's a threat. Maybe not a very good one. No. It'll be very good. And the only funny thing about it is the in the same cutout of that is a bus driver crash and death. Not what they say, you're next. It's that the clipping of the newspaper includes that part of another article. Yeah. Bus driver died. Fiery crash. Which reminds me of basically how Whaley died. A head-on crash, dead instantly. Basically, the thing about the transfers, like I say, is that why have one, if you don't plan on using it, right? And if you used it, you wouldn't have it. That's the thing about transfers. If you got one and you used it, it's not in your pocket, right? It's on another bus because another bus driver would have accepted it, right?
Yes.
So that's why I ask everybody to please find me another punched transfer from 1963. I dare you. Find me a punched transfer from Dallas from 1963. I dare you. So, if someone had one that was punched, got off a bus, they're going to use it because they paid 23 cents for the privilege to use that transfer, right? Are you going to go and pay another 23 cents even though you got a transfer? You're going to waste your money on a cab then? Even more money? Yeah. And you've got a transfer?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense, logically. So if you had the booklet, it would be pre-punched by Cecil as he says in his testimony, if you got a hold of his booklet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every punch, every one of those transfers, all 50 of them, he would have pre-punched before he went on his route. So all you need to do is get a hold of his booklet, right? You don't need him. You don't need his punch. You just need his booklet.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah.
That's the key right there.
Yeah.
So basically, now, and McWater's notarized statement in his handwritten affidavit said he picked up a man on Elm, the lower end of town, around Houston Street. Now he scratches that out, or he scratches out, I picked up a woman. Okay. So he says he picked up the man, and then he says, I picked up a woman. But he scratches out, I picked up a woman. And then he writes, I went out Marsalis, and I picked up a woman. And he's clarifying there. He knows exactly where he picked up the woman. And it wasn't downtown. And it wasn't back on Lamar or Field, or it wasn't downtown. So he knows where he picked up the woman. He's quite specific. And so any interactions between this man and that woman that he supposedly picked up would have to be out in Oak Cliff. Have to be. As soon as he leaves that stop near Houston, he drives out to Oak Cliff. There's nowhere else. So we know it was not a man downtown who gets a transfer, gets off the bus, did not use a transfer, but grabs a cab many blocks away, a cab that had already left before Lee could have ever got to that spot, barring time travel. The statement says says Cecil, let the man off on Marsalis. With the lady and the man is only on Marsalis Street. Nowhere else. Not downtown, not anywhere else. It's out on Marsalis. That's the only place it can be. That's where Cecil explains that this happened.
All right.
So Cecil agrees, though, that the transfer is from his bus with his punch mark. Yet the man's boarding is changed again, remember, from Houston Street in the affidavit. It's back, Griffin Street. All right.
Sorry, can you repeat that last bit? From Houston?
From the Texas School Depository on right, from Houston Street, where he says in the affidavit, that's where he picked him up, near Houston Street, to Griffin Street.
Right.
Now, it's 7 blocks from the Texas School Book Depository on Houston and Elm, where Cecil wrote in his affidavit, or his first day statement, around Houston, and not Midtown. So basically saying, in town means, Midtown would be where, Elm Street and Lamar, and this point where they say they picked him up. But McWaters is quite certain in this statement at the end of town. And so Cecil is a 30-year professional driver at that time. So it's doubtful he would confuse Griffin intersection with Houston, or Houston with a half street that doesn't even go across Elm. You would know that. Cecil said the police opened the right lane past Market, to allow the buses and such to go on. Cecil should be in the left lane to turn south on Houston, opposite the Texas School Book Depository on Elm. And basically, the Beckley bus, too, would go through this intersection, but in the right lane, exactly where the Beckley bus would need to be to make a stop at the northeast corner of Houston and Elm, in front of the Beltex building. And it'd be nice to know the Beckley bus driver's name, who he was, what his story was, who he had on his bus, what he saw. Did he accept any transfers? All this stuff we don't know. We only know about Cecil and his bus when right behind him is the Beckley bus. Not a word. We don't know who drove it or anything. No attempt by the DPD to even get that information. So basically, we've got this big hole in their case, and we don't have that information. I've looked for it. I've tried to find out who might have been driving that bus. It's really unavailable. It seems somebody would have came forward. I checked. There's a bus drivers forum for old Dallas drivers. Yeah. Nothing. I mean, it's just tough. Yeah. So it would be nice to know the Beckley bus driver's information, get his story, who was he, what he saw, Did he accept any transfers? Who was on his bus? All that kind of stuff. What did he see happening on, McWater's bus? It's right behind it. You should know. You should know how long he stayed at the Majestic Theater, killing a minute. All that kind of stuff. That driver could tell us. That would fill in a huge mystery, dark hole there where we don't know anything. So timing is important. So it's 12:45 before any news report. That's FAA announcing a temple shot to JFK, and that's because of the interview with Bill Newman that they do on air.
Yeah.
And then 12:47, Chet Huntley also mentions a temple shot. That's the earliest mention of those. Now, if they're stopped in traffic, a guy walks back to the bus from a car in front of Cecil's bus and steps on board and is telling Cecil about this. It would have to be after 12:44, after Oswald's already departed. He's gone. He's off the bus. So there's another blow to their story is the radio report, talking about the temple shot. So that just destroys them right there.
From a timing
because we know timing perspective, at 12:36, Cecil crossed St. Paul. At 12:40, he's at or past Field Street. At 12:44 is when the man gets off. So, it's 12:45 when Bill Newman begins talking about that and gives the temple story shot. And I think Newman was sitting with his baby or whatever, and he pointed to the opposite temple, to his left temple.
But then still you have to add on a few minutes for the story actually to be traveling and be told. So.
And that's where at 12:47. I mean, this is 3 minutes after the guys left the bus that Chet Huntley and all these reports would go out over the radio. So it doesn't look good for the commission, does it?
Again,
not at all. Looks really bad for them. So one scenario is if Milton Jones, maybe got a transfer from Cecil's bus, all stopped in traffic there. Maybe he goes up ahead, to Houston to go see what's going on. And so maybe while Milton is gone, a man in the car radio is listening to a news radio report. Here's the temple shot story at 12:47, walks back, tells the folks on the bus, and Milton wouldn't know this because he's got a transfer. He got off the bus, and then, he comes back after that guy, leaves his bus. Cecil knows the story and is trying to explain it to, everybody. It's a temple shot. And this is where Milton gets in this altercation later on, out on Marsalis with the lady. That's the only way that would work. It can't work down on Field Street. It hasn't happened yet. I mean, it's just impossible. So basically, so that's where Cecil pinned the transfer on this boy Milton, because he's the only kid or this small guy who's riding out to Oak Cliff and, knows about this temple shot. That's the only way it works. And so then basically, Cecil's asked to pick that man out of a lineup. Cecil says Oswald's the closest one, really trying to pick out Milton Jones. And it's odd that Milton is never questioned by the Warren Commission. Of course, because they don't want to go there, and basically the FBI didn't ask about his ride until March 30th. That's 4 months later. They go and they find Milton and his Brownlee address and call him, basically question him, take a FBI interview report of his story. And his story is kind of, by that time, by 4 months later, he's kind of lost the fine details maybe, about the timing. Says that the police came on the bus, basically searched everybody on the bus before it left downtown and this kind of stuff. I mean, when you look at the films that are taken of that intersection, showing the police, taking the cars through, even right after that, there's no stopping of buses and people. So, Milton would be a bad witness for them anyways, I think. But he really destroys their whole notion that Oswald was on the bus. Because, both him and Cecil described the writer as basically just a working guy wearing a matching uniform, basically top and bottom, kind of matching pants and jacket. Just a working guy, Yeah. So they didn't even think much about him, whereas Oswald would have been obviously not wearing the blue jacket. That's found by our other friend who wasn't at work that day, Kaiser, right? So it's very odd. And then, of course, that sets up the whole thing with Bledsoe and her X-ray vision. If he was wearing a jacket, how do you see tears in the elbow of the shirt? Yeah. So basically, there's these are the ways Oswald may have left the plaza. I'll give you the top 10 list. One is by bus. 2, bus and cab. 3, different bus. 4, bus and different cab. 5, station wagon driven by a Negro. 6, station wagon belonging to Ruth Payne, and possibly maybe Ruth dropping him off in the morning too. We don't know how he got there. Sure wasn't with Wes riding out to the other parking lot. Unknown automobile, unknown driver. Number 8, an auto driven by Charles.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Is it going again? Yeah, it's gone tits up. Thank you very much.
The top 10 list.
Hold on. Sorry. You need to clap. Can you go back to number 8, please? Because we were frozen.
Okay. Number 8, an auto driven by Charles Gibbons, William Lowry, or Joe Molina.
Yeah, that's definitely an option.
Remember too that that Lee was dropped off at Ruth's place when he came back one time by a Negro in a truck, supposedly hitchhiking. 9, his usual ride, Buell Resley Frazier. Yeah, right. 10, David Leon Miller or Marion Mehag in that other car that they tried to get the license plate of. The Walker House photo station wagon with the plate scratched out. So that's actually number 11. Of note, a call was taken by the Dallas sheriffs that day on Friday from a Bishop bus rider. That's the Bishop bus line, by a rider by the name of J.G. Odell. And Odell relates that a man who got on the bus at Poydras Street said that the president was shot and the governor's been killed. And then that man, whom he kind of thought was Oswald by seeing the television, I guess, coverage of Oswald in custody, he said that guy got off the bus before Bishop Street. It sounds a lot like what became the Bledsoe story. Odell was never contacted again. So once they went with the Bledsoe story, and she was a landlady supposedly. So that made it even stronger for them.
Isn't it? What you're just mentioning here, that's quite interesting because that reminds me of the similar scenario with Victoria Adams and Sandra Stiles, for instance. Victoria Adams is hurt, and then there is a person who can corroborate her story, and then there's no interview, there's no Warren Commission, there's nothing. And as Sandra Stiles also said afterwards, they never wanted to know anything of the sort as such. They never tried to touch anything about our descent from the 4th to the ground floor, basically, as such. Anything that could be helped to back up that something that would prove contradictory to the official report was basically ignored. And there's that.
Otis Williams.
Sorry?
Otis Williams on the step. Otis Williams going up the back steps too.
Yeah, exactly. But all these things that basically can just help corroborate a different scenario are basically ignored right away. It's like, yours is a brilliant example as well, again, of that.
So basically that's what you got there. You've got, rather than Odell, a stranger, they go with the landlord story. It makes it stronger. Even if it's completely false, never happened, they stick with it. So, and he had contacted the sheriff's office, and there's the thing too, Porter called the DPD and then took her down there to the DPD. It seems like that's where most of this comes from. I mean, Roger Craig was he's a deputy sheriff.
Yeah.
He wasn't with the Dallas police.
Yeah.
But they didn't go with his story either, did they?
No, no, no. I mean,
Nope.
that in itself is quite interesting because in Barry Ernest's book, The Girl on the Stairs, in the late 60s, Ernest himself went to Dallas and he interviewed Craig. He also interviewed Decker, although be it very shortly.
Oh man.
And Decker said, like, Roger Craig is a liar. And Craig basically said the story of Craig was that Craig saw Oswald leave. Well, he saw a guy who looked like Oswald, and he said, like, he got in a Rambler car and he couldn't reach it, although he said it was maybe about roughly 8 feet away in the car when he saw Oswald. So he was pretty close, so he could see whether it was Oswald or not. And he tried to catch up with them, but there were cars and the traffic was moving, so he couldn't really get to it as such. Then, while Oswald's being interrogated, Craig walks into Fritz's office and says, like, and Fritz says, like, this is the guy who saw you leave, blah, blah, blah. And he says, yeah, I told you guys, you know that, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, the Nash Rambler gets being brought in, and he says, don't bring, that car belongs to Ruth Payne, don't drag her into this. Then when Fritz is basically supposed to recall about all this, he really vaguely says, like, oh, you know what, yeah, I think he came in, and, you know, it doesn't really play out as such. And then, of course, when Decker says he's a liar, blah, 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 then after that, Jesse Curry's book comes out, and there's a picture of Craig standing inside room 313, which was robbery and homicide. And there's Craig standing inside, of basically showing the proof that he actually walked into that office and actually was present while Oswald was being interrogated as such. Yeah, interesting.
That's what we hope.
Yeah.
Supposedly the pictures are from Saturday though. Is what the beers photos supposedly those.
Yeah,
were from
I mean
Saturday.
they could be, but they could be from both.
I don't know if they are or not.
I don't see. For me, it's like I don't see a reason why Craig would lie about something like that. That's, I mean, I just don't. And also, must not forget that Oswald was not interrogated as much and as long on a Saturday as he was on a Friday, because on a Friday he was interrogated relentlessly from 2 o'clock till about midnight. Yeah, almost like by 10 hours. Yeah, 10 hours in total. Oswald was only interrogated for about 13. So on a Saturday, he only did about 2 hours. And on a Sunday in the morning, he was there for about 45 minutes to an hour before he got snuffed.
Basically, the Holmes, the Holmes interview.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that Craig was in that office on the Friday as such. And I tend to believe Craig. There are things about it where you can go about, like, well, you didn't mention that back then, and you added it on afterwards, but
sure. Here's the thing: Bookout was there.
Yeah,
Bookout was there when he was there, and Bookout made the report about what Craig said.
Yeah,
and now I've always gone back and forth on this. Did Craig say a light colored Rambler, or did he say a white colored Rambler?
I think it was
Bookout puts white, but I think Craig was saying it was light because later on he said it was like a light green color. It was a light color, and whereas Bookout heard it as white, puts it in there. But then whenever, it's like supposedly trying to make Craig, his story changes. So when he goes before the testimony for the Warren Commission or whatever, it turns into a green car.
Yeah.
But no, he changed it. It's a white one or whatever.
Yeah. But the solo report by Lookout is iffy almost on almost every word, every letter of that solo report is iffy, because he actually contradicts himself for the joint report that he did with Hosty, and especially regarding Oswald, because
this is the second one. The Bookout one where he's talking about Craig. This is a completely separate. This is not an Oswald. This is not any of those. It's not the combined or the separate one. This is a completely separate one where he's just specifically giving the information from Craig.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
I think I might even have it on the PowerPoint.
Actually, you're absolutely right. But it shows also that Bookout was basically working that day in trying to reinvent the story and actually do a 180 on his joint report that he did with Hosty the day before. And the most telling telling moment about that is actually when he says that Oswald, after the so-called second floor lunchroom encounter, goes downstairs, has his lunch, and then stands outside with Bill Shelley talking. Whereas Bill Shelley
For 15
wasn't
minutes.
standing outside. Well, he was standing outside before,
Right.
but not after,
Before.
because he went to the railroad yards and then went back through the side entrance as such. So basically, Bookout at that point basically makes it sound that Oswald actually stayed for 10 to 15 minutes after the assassination in the building and just outside.
Right.
Such.
That's exactly what he's trying to do.
Exactly, and that is basically like it's
Holding
either
on.
one way or another. Did he leave right away after, or did he hang around as such? And this is like where he contradicts himself badly.
And you can't have it both ways.
No.
I mean, if he left at 12:33, gets on this bus, goes in that cab, gets to Oak Cliff, gets his pistol supposedly, and that's what they're trying to do is transfer points. So when you look at also in the PowerPoint, I'll show the transfer points, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get him to Oak Cliff so he can supposedly go from the rooming house over to this transfer point over on Jefferson or whatever. Yeah. And supposedly that's where he's heading, whenever he takes this gun out and shoots down Tippit. And that whole thing is it's all garbage. It doesn't wash.
Yeah,
especially
all hooey. As once again, I mean,
start at the beginning.
There's
and
nothing that holds any water in this case. That if you look deep into it, they're either lying, or there are just so many contradictions where you just go, this doesn't add up. It does not add up at all. And this is where lone nut theorists always fail, because they don't look at the complete picture as such. And the complete picture actually shows how actually wrong everything is. Now, you can put things down to bad writing or bad police work and so forth, but you cannot have that many inconsistencies and so many screw-ups. It just boggles the mind how many screw-ups actually are being made. If it's not in the paperwork or the testimony, it's just everywhere. And plus the lying, a lot of people are basically caught out as such by being just complete liars.
Oh, right, absolutely.
Either voluntarily or being put under pressure, of course. Let's just try and round this up a bit.
Sure. Just a couple more.
I've got one
points
question
like that.
before you continue. Yeah. I've just got one question. What made you look into the bus as such?
Well, the bus seemed quite humorous. I found much humor in like the Oswald, the Technicolor jacket. The piece that I wrote about. It was just so humorous. All the different stories that they tried to pin down to one jacket, and then this same thing. They're trying to pin all these various stories onto one rider on public transportation. Yeah. And it's just comical. I just find, you cannot write this. The Bledsoe stuff, you cannot write. No writer in the world, I don't care how dedicated you are to humor, or it's impossible. You cannot write this stuff. The stuff that was said, the questions that are asked, the replies. There's no Seinfeld. There's no God couldn't write this stuff. Nobody's that funny. Yeah. No one is that funny. So that really got me into it, and and just all the rumors and stuff, all the Chinese whispers. Yeah. Like Edward Shields. He worked at the old warehouse where West parked the car in front of down there on farther down Houston Street there. He said basically the rumor was, what he heard was, and the talk was, I think, quote, the talk was that Lee Harvey Oswald left the Texas School Book Depository and a bus happened to be at the corner then, so he hopped on it. That was what Edward Shields had said. Right. And that sounds like basically what, that sounds like a Beckley bus, Either it was, the one that was caught in traffic or the next one that come along, whatever, 12 minutes later, whatever. So that would be where you would get on the bus. If you're a bus driver, you would know that. Right. You would just wait there on the corner and take that bus. You wouldn't walk 7 blocks up the street. Yeah. It just seems ridiculous on its face, and it is. So basically, also, Cecil Joffrey McWaters said basically the man rode 2 blocks in his testimony thing, and 4 minutes from near Poydras, Griffin, And then he said he was stuck for 3 or 4 minutes between Poydras and Lamar, where the man left the bus, at or near Lamar. But the thing is, Poydras is between Griffin and Lamar. It's 1 block before Lamar is Poydras. So Poydras is where Cecil admits the man and the suitcase lady got off there, basically, or the train lady. So if the man got on at Griffin and rode to Poydras, that is but 1 block. 1 block. Elm Cross streets were Everett, Stone, Ackerd, Field, Murphy, Griffin, Poydras, Lamar, Austin, Market, Record, Houston. That's what they were back then. So basically, if the guy gets on past Murphy at about Griffin and rides to almost Lamar, which is Poydras, he's rode a block. 4 minutes for a block. I mean, it just seems silly, but
I think
they try and
crawling it.
It seemed like he was on the. Yeah, they try and make it sound like he was on the bus for so long. Everybody got a good view of him. The guy got on, got off a stopped bus. Basically, what happened. Yeah. A working guy in a blue jacket and blue pants. So Cecil McWaters says the man rode 2 blocks, 4 minutes, from near Poydras and Griffin, and said he was stuck in traffic for 3 or 4 minutes between Poydras and Lamar, where the man left the bus at or near Lamar. But Poydras is between Griffin and Lamar. Yeah. That's 1 block before Lamar is Poydras. So Poydras is where Cecil admits the man and the suitcase lady got off there, or the train lady. So if the man got off or got on at Griffin and rode to Poydras, 1 block. It's but 1 block. Elm Cross streets were Everett, Stone, Ackerd, Field, Murphy, Griffin, Poydras, Lamar, Austin, Record, Houston. 4 minutes, 1 block. Would you get on that bus?
Nope.
I wouldn't get on that bus.
No.
Which leads us to why he got off the bus, probably.
Yeah.
To go catch a cab, right?
Yeah.
So on April 8th, 1964, William Whaley, the cab driver in question, gives a deposition in Dallas to Mr. David Boleyn. Boleyn needed to remind Whaley they had just met in Washington. Mr. Boleyn asks, "You previously testified before the commission in Washington. Is that correct?" Mr. Whaley says, "Yes, sir." Mr. Boleyn asks, "Mr. Ball and I saw you in Washington. Is that correct?" Mr. Whaley answers, "Now, I don't know if that is correct or not, but your face it's very familiar." Mr. Boleyn asks, "You think you have seen me before?" Mr. Whaley, "I don't know." Boleyn, "I might have been in Washington when you were there?" Mr. Whaley, "Yes, sir, it could have been." So who would defend Whaley's memory? I mean, Whaley doesn't remember a counselor who is questioning him, who is at his Warren Commission testimony, who's questioning him before he goes before the Warren Commission. I mean, here are we to believe his memory of a face he saw on television and the newspapers is not a false memory or some confusion? Mr. Boleyn goes on to ask, "All right, now, in here it says, number 3 man, quote, number 3 man who I now know is Lee Harvey Oswald was a man I carried from the Greyhound bus station. Was this the number 2 or number 3 man?" Mr. Whaley answers, "Well, I signed that statement before they carried me down to see the lineup. I signed the statement, and then they carried me down to the lineup at 2:30 in the afternoon." Mr. Boleyn asks, "You signed this affidavit before you signed? You saw the lineup?" Mr. Whaley, "Well, now, let me get this straight. You're getting me confused." And Mr. Ball asks, "Do you know a taxi driver named Darrell Click?" Mr. Whaley responds, "I may know his face, sir, but not his name." Really? So a non-existent person, but Whaley may know his face. That's very interesting. And finally is back to Hugh Ainsworth, who gave us the cab story, remember? The break came when Ainsworth and Grove, his partner, decided Oswald had to have taken a taxi after he got off the bus at the corner of Lamar and Elm. Grove and Ainsworth Ellsworth started taking cabs, endless cabs. They pile in, give some destination, and then begin loudly discussing, what's his old name? The guy who gave a ride to that little SOB who shot the president. If the cab driver didn't rise to the bait, they'd have him pull over, pay him, and hail another cab. Grove says they rode in enough cabs to drive to Mongolia. Eventually, one driver looked over his shoulder and said, "Oh, you mean Louis?" "Yeah, that's right, Louis. By the way, where's old Louis now?" He's probably over at the Greyhound station in the line." So over to the Greyhound station, and after some smooth persuading of Louis, the escape route was nailed down. There it is. That's your story right there.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, Whaley is about the most useless witness you can just ever imagine. It's just utter crap. You know, I mean, there are bullet holes into McWhorter's story as well. I mean, not one person can just certify and say, yeah, Oswald was on that bus. I saw him there. He was wearing such and such. I know it for 100%, blah, blah, blah. It's just not there. Nowhere it can be found as such. You know, it's just innuendo after innuendo. It'd be a story Albert Doyle would be proud of, actually.
Yeah, a defender of an indefensible defense of some complete garbage. That
I think you've done some excellent work with this. I mean, the thread itself at the RKC forum, it's always one of the most important threads with new finds and putting a story together. I think we all, in our own way, have been trying to put stories together. But be it Prayer Man, be it second floor lunchroom encounter, be it the bus ride, be it Buell Wesley Frazier, and so forth. You know, the stuff has been spread over the net all over the place, but it just takes a lot of work to put it all together and try and get it into a cohesive story that basically shows how much there is actually wrong, the contradictions. It is a bit of a Harold Weisberg method, because that's what Weisberg did. Weisberg went into all the documentations and started pointing out all the discrepancies as such. This is what I see with the book, like I mentioned before, the Girl on the Stairs as well. It just points out all the anomalies and all the discrepancies, and you just go like, hold on a minute. And then the issue is, and I'm especially talking to people that are interested in the case, is the fact that once the bigger picture starts to emerge, a whole different story presents itself and goes, hold on a minute, there cannot be that much wrong with your so-called official story. Yet there is.
The truth.
And it just shows it, and it's with everything, you know. It's whether it's the bullets or the picket fence or the DPD or whatsoever. As soon as you start delving into this and go, but this doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. And you know,
it only works. It only works if you stop at the surface. If you don't ask any questions, and you blindly accept what they tell you. Exactly. That's the only way it works.
Yeah, you just take
and that's
it
what
as gospel.
That's what they're hoping for.
Yeah.
That's what they've been hoping for 50 years, and I don't think they've ever got it. No. They never really got it. You know.
No.
Yeah. The only people who buy and spread their story is the media.
Yeah.
And some trolls on the internet, and that's about as far as it really goes.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, on that note, thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing all this again. And we're going to turn this into a presentation with accompanying Ed's work, which he's done in the PowerPoint presentation. And I shall add a few more pictures as well. And that's it. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.